Hello friends, let us discuss the Hindu newspaper for 9th of July 2020. On the first page, there is a news called 3 NGOs linked to Congress under Home Ministry scanner. So the Ministry of Home Affairs has decided to launch an investigation on 3 non-governmental organizations linked to the Congress government, linked to the Congress party. So an interministerial committee has been decided to be formed by the Ministry of Home Affairs, which will be headed by a senior officer of the Enforcement Directorate. These 3 NGOs are the Rajiv Gandhi Charitable Trust, the Rajiv Gandhi Foundation and the Indira Gandhi Memorial Trust. 2 out of these are foreign contribution reliant and 2 out of these are headed by Congress President Ms. Sonia Gandhi. So the government has alleged that these 3 NGOs have received foreign donations which are in excess of what they have been allowed to, and also some of these NGOs, for example, the Rajiv Gandhi Foundation has received donations from the Chinese embassy between 2006 and 2009, and that is how all these 3 NGOs have come under scanner of the central government. And the government has alleged that these NGOs, when it comes to accepting donations from a foreign country, have violated the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, the Income Tax Act and the Foreign Contributions Regulation Act. So the detailed investigation will follow, and if these are found guilty, strict action is to be taken against these NGOs. On the other hand, Congress leader Mr. Rahul Gandhi has criticized the government for curbing down on these NGOs and has claimed that the government is trying to shield its own ineffectiveness in tackling the COVID-19 and in economic distress, thereby diverting the attention towards such trivial issues, and nothing will come out of it. But there is no denying the fact that this issue has got attention because of the recent India-China standoff, in which the BJP leaders had accused the Congress NGOs or the NGOs headed by Congress President of receiving donations from the Chinese embassy when its government was in power. So it remains to be seen whether these contributions actually received by these foundations were in violation of these laws or not. In another news, US President Mr. Donald Trump has started withdrawal of United States of America from World Health Organization. So for the last few months, Mr. Donald Trump has been criticizing the World Health Body, which is a specialized agency of the United Nations, for its handling of the coronavirus disease and its praise of China despite opacity and claims of high-handedness on the part of China in handling the COVID-19. So US, that is one of the largest contributors to the World Health Organization, has always accused the World Health Organization to be acting in a biased way to support China going out of the way. And so now Mr. Trump has decided that in the next 1 year, that is by July 6th, 2021, US will finish the process of withdrawing from the UN specialized agency body. So the funding issue is now at the forefront because USA was the largest contributor to the WHO, contributing around $400 million annually. But now that it is withdrawing, the World Health Body will be strained even more. It is headquartered in Geneva, and its chief, Mr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, has said that this is a very regressive step by the United States of America, and it will not create a better world. It is actually a regressive step. And the Republican presidential candidate, Mr. Joe Biden, has said that if he wins the elections to the US presidentship that are slated to be held in November this year, he would end the pullout from the World Health Organization because he is in favor of USA remaining a member of the World Health Organization. So this is a big step because USA is the largest economy of the world and the largest contributor to the World Health Organization, and the World Health Organization is playing a pivotal role in creating a uniform structure throughout the world to keep the world out of to bring the world out of the COVID-19 pandemic. No doubt some criticisms are there. It has acted in a bit opaque manner, which we also discussed in this space in a previous video, but nonetheless it it remains a fact that World Health Organization has effectively and successfully steered the world out of many such pandemics in the past, and if such bodies' funding is increased and its autonomy is increased, it may become a better body. But the step of US is a step in the wrong direction. In another news, the Chinese troops are moving out of various areas that were a source of conflict between India and China. So in another video we discussed how India and China, both troops have started to withdraw from the Galwan Valley area, from the Patrol Point 14 area, and yesterday the Chinese troops have also moved out of the patrolling point 15, that is the hot springs area. Now two areas remain the bone of contention. One is the Gogra area and another is the Pangongso Lake. So the Pangongso Lake area is likely to stretch a few months because the conflict at the Pangongso area is the most stringent of all the conflicts, and as I told you in this space that finger number 4 and finger number 8 remain the bone of contention, and the Chinese have refused to go back to their earlier positions or to restore the status quo ante as far as Pangongso Lake is concerned. So till now Galwan Valley de-escalation has occurred and hot springs de-escalation has also taken place. Gogra area is also expected to see peace in the next few days, but Pangongso remains a bone of contention, and this particular pullback that has been initiated is not to create a buffer zone, rather it has been to prevent Galwan-like clashes during the disengagement process in future. So it is not that a buffer area is being created between both the states. The main purpose of such a disengagement is to avoid a Galwan-like clash because the troops had come eyeball to eyeball, and that is why the scuffle took place. So this is a positive step. In another news on the front page, India has said that Kulbhushan Jadhav was coerced. Now first of all, let us see what was the Kulbhushan Jadhav case and who is Mr. Kulbhushan Jadhav. So Mr. Kulbhushan Jadhav is a former Indian naval officer, and he was arrested by the Pakistani authorities from Iran on the charges of spying for India against Pakistan. So Pakistan has claimed that he is an Indian spy, and he was tried in a military court without any consular support and without any due regard to the principles of natural justice. He was not allowed to defend his case, he was not allowed to have a consular access, and he was not allowed to appeal against the decision. So he was granted capital punishment in the year 2017, and against that decision India moved the International Court of Justice, which is a principal organ of the United Nations, in The Hague, Netherlands, and there a case was fought and India won that case in 2019. So the International Court of Justice in its verdict had directed Pakistan to provide consular access to India to Mr. Kulbhushan Jadhav. So after that particular decision, Pakistan tried to provide consular access but with various restrictions which India never accepted. So now that so much time has lapsed between that judgment and now, Mr. Kulbhushan Jadhav was not allowed to file his review petition, but Pakistan is claiming that Mr. Kulbhushan Jadhav has refused to file an appeal against the judgment of the military court, and he has decided not to file an appeal or a review petition, and as he has decided to accept the punishment as it is. But India has said that Mr. Kulbhushan Jadhav is in the custody of Pakistani authorities and Mr. Kulbhushan Jadhav is being coerced by the Pakistani authorities, and India has always denied that Kulbhushan Jadhav is an Indian spy. India has always maintained that he is a former Indian naval officer and he was not spying for India. That is why this particular development is of utmost importance, because the Pakistan has said that he is not interested in applying for review or appeal. On the editorial page, there is an editorial, a case for extension. So a case for extension, this particular editorial talks about the importance of Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme and its importance in the times of economic distress and rural migration crisis. So the author has suggested that Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme that envisages 100 days of guaranteed unskilled employment to people in rural areas should be extended this year, because after the coronavirus disease 19 induced lockdown and the migrant distress, due to which we saw lakhs of migrants walking back to their states and to their homes, there is a lot of economic distress in India, and this economic distress has come down most heavily on the migrant population, who are always surviving hand to mouth. So for these particular people, the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, or the MG-NREGA scheme, should be extended this year, because in 2/3 of the states where this scheme is operating, the demand has increased twofold or even threefold, and around 8.4 lakh poor households have already completed at least 80 days of the 100-day limit for work under the scheme, and 1.4 lakh among those have already completed the full quota of 100 days. So that shows that even though the year has just passed in half, just 6 months have passed in 2020, and already so many people have exhausted their quota of work under the scheme. So the article is building a case for the government of India to consider extending the scheme, not only the extension in the 100 days criteria, but also in various new areas this scheme should be implemented, and also that the wages should be submitted, or wages should be transferred in a timely manner. So this scheme has been criticized for various reasons in the past. It has been criticized, but this time the article is making a case that various technological interventions should be included, various types of steps should be taken to increase the 100 days quota, to increase the areas under this scheme, and to rationalize the wages, and to speedily disburse the wages under the scheme, because various critics and various technology experts and the designers of the scheme has also suggested that this is a scheme that can bring the rural areas out of distress. So this article is basically building a case for the extension of NREGA scheme. In another news, the Enforcement Directorate has seized Nirav Modi's assets worth rupees 330 crores. So Mr. Nirav Modi is wanted in a scam or a fraud that was undertaken in the Punjab National Bank. So its mastermind was Mr. Nirav Modi, who is a diamantaire or a diamond merchant, but he fled to United Kingdom, and various cases have been registered against Mr. Nirav Modi under Prevention of Money Laundering Act, which was a case already in place. And last year the Parliament of India has passed another act called the Fugitive Economic Offenders Act. So under both these acts, the property and the assets of such economic offenders who have done any grave economic offense and have fled the country, or who are declared fugitives, their assets, their properties can be attached by the Enforcement Directorate or other authorities in India. So in pursuance to such a direction, properties worth rupees 2,348 crore have been attached so far, and recently 330 crore rupees worth of properties were attached against Mr. Nirav Modi. And these properties are not only in India, it includes various flats and farmhouses in India, and a flat in London, and some flats in UAE, besides shares and banks deposits. So that means under the Fugitive Economic Offenders Act, the property and assets of the offenders can be attached not only in India, but it can also be executed anywhere around the world with the consent of that particular state. So also Mr. Nirav Modi is in London, and extradition proceedings are going on against him in UK. He has lost one round of appeals, and another round of appeals is still in motion. The United Nations Special Rapporteur has made public third communication on Jammu and Kashmir after the 370 article was abrogated by the Government of India on 5th of August 2019. So since then, this is the third report by UNSRs, and they have made some critical comments against the state, that is the Government of India. They have raised various human rights violations issues and various minority issues. Basically, they have raised issues on torture and other cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment, on extrajudicial, summary, or arbitrary executions, on minority issues, and on freedom of religion and belief. So it was made public after 60 days of response time, and the report has said that the human rights conditions in Jammu and Kashmir have faced severe restrictions after 5th of August 2019. There are arbitrary detentions, there are violations to the prohibition of torture and ill treatment and rights of persons belonging to minorities. So this particular report has been released, and it indicts the government of India for various lapses in human rights responses in the Jammu Kashmir Valley. In a significant development, the Indian Navy has concluded its Operation Samudra Setu. So this operation was operated by the Indian Navy, and under this particular operation, 4 naval ships of Indian Navy, mainly the landing platform INS Jalashwa and landing ship tanks INS Aravat, INS Shardul and INS Magar. These 4 ships actually participated in the Samudra Setu, and the intention of this particular operation was to bring back various stranded Indians due to COVID-19 through sea route into India. So under this operation, lakhs of Indian expatriates have been brought back to India, and the operation actually concluded after 55 days. So this operation was going on for the last 2 months, and most of the expatriates have been brought to India from various countries, including many in the Indian Ocean. And this is not the first time such an operation has been undertaken by the Indian Navy. Earlier also, Operation Sukoon was undertaken by the Indian Navy in Beirut in Lebanon, where the Indians were in distress, and at that time Indian Navy had rescued various Indians. Similarly, recently in Operation Rahat in 2015, when there was a natural disaster in Yemen, lakhs of Indians were brought back to India. But the uniqueness of Samudra Setu lies in the fact that this is the largest repatriation of Indians anywhere in the world. So this is the largest such operation undertaken by the government of India. There is a article on the main page of the Hindu. The social contract needs to be rewritten. So this is a brilliant article by Mr. Srinath Sridevan and Mr. Adil Karimboy, and they are the advocates practicing in the Madras High Court. So they have taken a critical analysis of the COVID-19 lockdown, and they have suggested the state to take steps to ensure the welfare of the poor in the country. So first of all, they have criticized the government's handling of the coronavirus outbreak and the resultant lockdown, and the article talks at length about the theory of social contract. So according to the article, the social contract was a theory where the people who were supposed to remain free, they actually lent some of their rights to the state, and the state in turn decided to protect those rights. So this was the social contract theory, in which there was a contract between the people and the sovereign, that is the one who rules the people. So there was a contract between the sovereign and the people, in which the people surrendered some of their rights to the sovereign, and the sovereign in turn decided to protect those rights and also to provide for the welfare of the people. But the authors argue that this theory of social contract has now gone too far. People have also started surrendering their individual rights in the name of collective good, and in this particular arrangement, various sovereigns or various state executives have started aggrandizing power or started concentration of power, which is not good. During the COVID-19 pandemic and the lockdown that ensued, India has been divided into 2 Indias. So according to the authors, we have seen 2 Indias recently. One is composed of the haves and one is composed of the have-nots. So the haves basically have all the material resources or the bare minimum necessities that they require. So they can practice social distancing, they can sanitize themselves, they have adequate food and shelter and all those types of luxuries that are required to stay safe from the coronavirus pandemic. On the other hand, we have seen have-nots, those who are barely eligible to fulfill their basic necessities, those who are walking thousands of kilometers on roads to reach their homes, and those who live hand to mouth, or mostly these are composed of the migrant laborers. So India has seen two Indias, one is the haves and one is the have-nots. So this should not be there, and the state of India has a social contract not only with haves but also with the have-nots. So the state should not only protect the haves but also the have-nots. And the authors have suggested that to overcome this pandemic crisis, the state should have three qualities. First is the state should be sensitive. The state should be sensitive enough to understand the plight of the poorest of the poor and the migrant labor in this particular context. Only when the state is sensitive can it take adequate steps to address the problems that the people are facing. Secondly, various steps that the state will take have to be decentralized, because if the steps are centralized, it is very difficult to put or pin blame on someone, and it is very difficult to evaluate the schemes which make the state a despot and an autocrat. Thirdly, the state should ensure empowerment. The state should not only give free rations to the poor, it should also ensure empowerment, and one way of empowerment is by providing work. For example, the article that we discussed about Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. So such is the level of empowerment that people can work and people can earn for themselves. So this is all that has been suggested by the authors in this particular article. In the end, the authors have given an example of Mr. Thomas Hobbes, who was a great administrative thinker. Mr. Hobbes had given the concept of Leviathan. So Leviathan was a very mighty state, a very strong state. So the authors have argued that Leviathan was a strong state, and such a strong state is required to fight terrorism or national security issues, but such Leviathans cannot help in situations like the coronavirus disease 19, because such an approach has failed in India, where all the power was decided to be concentrated in some few polar areas. However, this has not gone down well, this has not worked well, and the power needs to be centralized if it has to work for the welfare of the people. If the power was not exercised in a Leviathan way, it would have been a different situation, and various migrant laborers could have achieved something good out of it, or could have reaped the benefits out of it. So the article makes a case for revisiting the theory of social contract, so that the state feels more entitled towards all the sections of society, not only haves but also have-nots, and also the state should introspect more, and it should be more sensitive to the needs of the poor. There are some important words in today's newspaper. One is bully. So to bully means to threaten or to insult or to browbeat someone. So it is done by force or by aggression. To bully means to submit someone into doing or not doing something. So the sentence that in which it was used was, Trump shaped by bullying. Trump shaped by bullying father, says niece Mary in new book. So Mr. Donald Trump's niece Mary has written a new book, and in it she has shared that Mr. Trump was shaped by a bullying father. So the conditioning of Mr. Donald Trump's mind has been shaped by a father who was a bully. That means he used to intimidate and he used to threaten or show force on other people. Second is appetite. Appetite means craving for something, or to develop a taste or preference, or hunger or desire for something. So appetite means a hidden need or want amongst oneself for something. So appetite can easily be linked with craving and hunger. So the sentences in which it can be used are, I have lost my appetite. So I have lost my appetite means I am no longer hungry. I have lost my appetite. The second sentence is, your risk appetite is enormous. This means, risk appetite means the capability to take risks. So a person is complimenting another person that your risk appetite is enormous. You can take very high levels of risk. The third word is coerce. So coerce is somewhat like bully, to compel to an act or choice by force or threat. So coerce means to submit someone into doing something which the other person does not want to do. For example, if person A is pointing a gun on the head of person B, and person B is asked to sign a piece of paper, Mr. B is under coercion. So A is coercing B to sign a piece of paper by pointing a gun to his head. So this is called coercion. The sentence in which it is used is, India says Kulbhushan Jadhav was coerced. So India has said that Mr. Kulbhushan Jadhav was actually coerced or threatened or browbeaten by the authorities of the Pakistan. Fourth word is patrol. So patrol here means a survey or reconnaissance for observation or maintenance of security. So when a survey is undertaken of a particular area for observation or for maintenance of security, it is called a patrol. The options are, Chinese troops have fully moved out of the patrolling point 15. So this is first example, Chinese troops have fully moved out of the patrolling point 15. And the second is, the police was patrolling the streets. So these are two fine examples of patrolling. Fifth word is casualty. This is a very frequently used word. Whenever there is an accident or whenever there is a clash, whenever an Indian dies, we always have this news in the newspaper that so many casualties have been there. So what is a casualty? A person who is lost through death or wounds or injury or sickness. So for any such reason, if a person is lost by death, that is known as a casualty. The sentence is, Chinese Consul General has acknowledged casualties on their side. So India and China, they clashed at the Galwan Valley a few days back and 20 Indian soldiers were killed. But at that time, China had not released any such number, and now the Chinese Consul General has acknowledged that indeed there were certain casualties on their side. That means certain soldiers were killed on their side, but since China is not a free democracy, these figures were not allowed to be come out in the open space. So these are certain important words. Bully means to threaten, appetite means hunger, coerce means to force someone to do or not to do something, patrolling means surveillance, and casualty means deaths. So thank you everyone. This has been the news analysis for today. Thank you for watching.